Thank you guys for all coming and listening to my garden talk. First of all, is there anybody here who this is your first time? Yay! This is so exciting. So if you've already gone through the tasting tables, you may have seen our display table. And the display table tells you what we are about, why we do what we do, which is we work with children who have gone through traumatic experiences, and we use the horses and ranch experiences to help them work through the stuff that they've gone through. So it's a mentorship program where we're all one-on-one with the kids. And we're what's called a lockdown facility, meaning that everybody that's on the property when we're having sessions is background check fingerprinted. And that this is a place that no one can come onto the property while we're doing sessions other than the families that we're working with and our staff. And so 3 times a year, we get to open the ranch up and have the public come in, and this is one of those 3 times. And it's for the tomato tasting every year, 3rd Saturday in August. And then we have 2 plant sales in March and April where we sell the tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants that are a fundraiser for all the ranch activities that are out here. So if you have not bought plants from us before, and you are not on our email list, we have an email list in there that you can sign up for, and the list of all the plants that we're growing for the year will come out the 1st of February, and you can pre-order from the 1st of February to the 1st of March, and then we stop the pre-orders, and then we start having plant sales, and you just buy the stuff right off of the tables. We have over 100 varieties of tomatoes on our list, over 45 varieties of peppers, and about 12 to 14 varieties of eggplants that we keep on the list all the time. And then we always have just interesting stuff that we throw in there at the last minute because we're growing a lot of things in the garden that are not tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. And so if we have extra plants of those, sometimes we'll throw them into the mix too, but we don't advertise them because we never know what we're going to have until the very last minute, what we're going to have out there, which is how we're going to kind of bend in our garden talk today. First of all, I wanted to point out one of the big changes that's going to happen in the spring when we have our plant sales is, if you've seen out in the garden, we are building a permanent greenhouse. At our plant sales for the last 28 years, when we are growing our tomatoes, we're using temporary greenhouses that have to go up for the growing season, and then we take them down as soon as the plant sales are over. They're a pain in the rear. When we have big storms in the spring, they have lifted them right out of the ground and sent them flying across the property. And so we have wanted to build the permanent greenhouse for over 13 years. Because 13 years ago, when my grandfather passed away, this greenhouse was his, and he used it to grow rare orchids. And my family donated the greenhouse to the ranch 13 years ago. We had to go and take it down. And this is not a greenhouse that was ever intended to be taken down. So it took a whole crew of people, and then we had to trek it all over the place while we moved until we got to this property. And then when we got here, we couldn't just start building it because we needed a grant to be able to put it back together and retrofit it because it was originally glass and it was not tempered. You can't have untempered glass around kids. So now we're doing it all in polycarbonate so it won't be dangerous. But we...
Loud.
I'm loud? Okay. But we...
You don't need to project.
Okay. I'm not used to that. We had to stop production or putting the greenhouse together when it got too hot. Polycarbonate, 100-degree days, doesn't really work that well. And big projects tend to get sidelined when we're in session season. So right now we are in session season. I've got it off. And so we've got kids out here all during the week from April through October. And at the end of October, we close down. If any of you guys are looking for places to volunteer, as soon as we close our season down, we start doing big projects. So we'll be finishing the greenhouse. We've got all sorts of different projects that we'll be tackling in the off season. So that's pretty much what's going on here. one of the fun things that we're going to do once the greenhouse is put up is we are learning how to turn the greenhouse into a dehydrator during the summer. So we will be able to use the entire greenhouse to dehydrate all of our like tomatoes and vegetables and stuff like that. We can do it in the greenhouse. So with that, how many of you guys garden? And how many of you are planning on fall gardening? Oh, awesome. Okay. So we are just like you guys, like we're getting to the end of the growing season for summer. We're all organic, so we fight the bugs as best we can organically, and then there's a point in the season where we just throw our hands up and let them have the stuff. We're almost at that point. So the aphids they're fighting us, and we're about to just let them have it. So you will notice if you're going through the garden that there are pepper plants and eggplants that just have honeydew all over them because the aphids are taking them over, and we've already saved our seed and we've already made our hot sauce, and so they're anything that they want, we're just basically throwing our hands up and walking away. And then we'll get a really good flush of ladybugs because we're letting the aphids go in the season and they'll take over. So we're all about balancing everything in an organic garden. Once you start trying to knock out one bug, you create another problem. So we're always trying to balance what we're doing so that it works with nature the way God intended it to work, and we don't fight nature, we try to work with it. So some of the catchphrases that our people recognize is we're regenerative, we're sustainable, and we're working towards even more so that it's not just the garden, but it's the whole property eventually that we'll be able to have where it's all going sustainable and regenerative. And so we love teaching about that stuff, and we love answering questions about it, and we're still learning stuff too, but every time we grab a hold of something and we start working with it and it seems like it's working for us, then we stick with it until we need something else. So right now, if you're fall gardening, you know that onions and garlic are getting ready to go in. We have seed garlic for sale. We have 3 different varieties, and one of them is a hardneck. I personally love hardnecks. The Central Valley of California does not like hardnecks because it's too hot, so we have to play with them to get them to work. But the hardnecks give you a lot more spice, and they also give you scapes, if you guys have ever made stuff with scapes. So in the spring, we're cutting our scapes off and sauteing them with everything we eat. They're just amazing. So softnecks won't do that. The hardnecks, if you're interested in them, have to go in the refrigerator for a month before you stick them in the ground because we don't get cold enough here for them to kick into gear. So in end of September, we will be putting our hardnecks into the refrigerator and then pulling them out at the end of October and sticking them in the ground. And then around sometime in the month of October is when we're putting our shallots and our onions and our softneck garlics in the ground too. The beautiful thing about working with heirlooms is you only have to purchase them once, and then you can save, like if it's the garlic, you save some of your bulbs to plant the next year. If it's your seeds, you save your seeds to plant the next year, and they'll always give you the same thing that you planted as long as they don't cross-pollinate with something else. Garlic doesn't cross-pollinate, and tomatoes are self-pollinating, so it's very rare that they will cross-pollinate on their own. They will occasionally, but most of the time that's not a problem. Is it off?
Yeah, you did it.
Sorry.
Something's
It was
connection. It's all right.
on me. I don't like technology. So also we're going to be putting in our brassicas, which are the cauliflower, broccoli, Chinese cabbage, regular cabbage, lettuces, cilantro, arugula. We eat a lot of arugula. All of those things are going to be going in October. And so, where are my girls? Can I have my girls come up here?
You lost a packet behind you.
Where is it?
It's right behind you.
Ah. Brooklyn? Thank you. Who likes cilantro? Can you pick 3 people with their hand up? Let's wait until. Who likes arugula? Pick 3 people.
Thank you.
And this is a lettuce that we grow. It's called Freckles. It's green with little red freckles on it. So lettuce. Who likes to plant lettuce? Great. That's our little freebie. If you did not get them and you'd like to purchase them, they have more of them up there. Those were just ones that we've thrown in there. So they've been grown here. We've saved our seeds ourselves. And all of the seeds that are being saved up there that are for sale up there are stuff that we've grown ourselves. So, okay, so since we are getting ready to wind down into the fall, and our garden is a test garden, so we're taking notes, we're testing new stuff every year, and we're taking notes of what works for us and what doesn't work for us. I thought it would be fun to have you guys taste some of the stuff that we're growing that is not a tomato. And so we have 4 different kinds of cucumbers, and the girls are going to pass them around. And if you want to taste them, you can. You don't have to. And then I will tell you a little bit about each one of them. So Brooklyn, what's the one you have? Let me see. Because the names can be hard. Biet Alpha. Okay, Biet Alpha. Has anybody grown Biet Alpha cucumbers? So Biet Alpha is unusual in that it is self-pollinating. So if you have a problem with aphids, you can actually cover with insect barrier over your cucumber plants, and they will still pollinate without having pollinators, but bees and stuff coming in and pollinating them. And the vine is not very big. It only gets about this big. So we've trellised it, but it doesn't get crazy like some of our other varieties. And obviously you can eat the skin, and you can, even when they get a little bit bigger, they never get bitter. One of the things that we've learned out here, because we're on sand and our soil does not retain moisture very well, cucumbers love water. They're mostly water anyway, so they obviously need a lot of water. So if you're having a problem with bitter cucumbers, it's probably because they're not getting enough water. So just up your water for your cucumbers and see if that helps with sweetening them. But since we have upped our water considerably for our cucumbers, every cucumber we've tested has not been bitter. So we're really happy with those. But Biet Alpha, I think, is like won my heart. This is the 3rd year we've grown it, and I can't get enough of them. So what's the next one? I know you won't be able to. I'm pretty sure that's the Japanese one. Yes. So I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but the first part of it is called jibai, and then the second part of it is like this long, and it's shim with a whole bunch of other letters, and it's in Japanese. So it's a Japanese cucumber, also dark green skin, and they have like the little prickly guys on them, but they're really easy to, if you've got gloves on, you just rub them off, so they're not offensive like some of the cucumbers that you get that like stick in your finger and you can't get them out. They come off really easily. It is a bigger vine than the Biet Alphas, but still not super crazy as far as the vine side. And they can get about this big before they start, the seeds get too big. And you can see in some of those bigger pieces, you know, the cucumber was about this big around and about that long that we cut up from there. And it's just, Japanese cucumbers are great overall, but these seem like, for us, they're handling the heat. Cucumbers tend to not like super heavy heat, and these guys seem to handle the heat really well. So we like those. Next one. Is this Indian? Yes. Okay. This one's fun. So this is Indian snake cucumber. We've never grown this one before. It looks like an Armenian, but it grows thinner and does this, and they're kind of tricky to fit them in the refrigerator because they get super long and kind of curl all over the place. I think they're sweeter than Armenian cucumbers, though Armenian is one of my absolute favorites. The weird thing about them is you notice how they've got the hole in the middle. That hole is there regardless of the size of the cucumber. So when you're squeezing them, normally if you squeezed a cucumber and you felt it give, you'd think it was like too far gone. They all have that hole in the middle. So that's really the best way to tell for me when I'm picking Armenians and the Indian snakes is if I've picked them and I'm not sure which one's which, I squeeze them. And if they feel soft, it's Indian snake. And if it's solid, then it's Armenian. But they produce like crazy. And the vines are big. If you go out in the garden and you look at them, like they're the ones that are doing this everywhere. So they're taking over a lot of space. But they have produced better than any cucumber we've ever grown. I've been picking at least 5 to 6 pounds a day of our cucumbers, and when I skip a day, it's usually 12, 13 pounds it's Indian snake cucumber. And then the last cucumber is Armenian, which you may be very familiar with because they've been around forever and ever. So if you want to go ahead and start sending them around. And Armenian is technically a melon, but it is the best type of cucumber for it. Pretty much, I've never heard anyone say an Armenian cucumber is bitter. And so if you have problems with bitter cucumbers, try an Armenian cucumber, and they're the stable one. Like even when we're testing cucumbers, we always want Armenian in the garden because we know we'll have cucumbers even if the other stuff that we're testing fails. And they're an awesome, great tasting one. And that is the last cucumber. We're going to have something else in just a second, but we have not saved our seed for anything except the Indian snake cucumber yet. Our cucumbers, for all the others, if you were to go to the seed table and ask for them, you need to be put on a list because our cucumbers are still sitting out there. We have to wait until they get big and ugly and huge, and then we get the seeds from them so that we have really good germination. So they're not there yet. Like they're sitting out there. If you go look in the garden, you'll find them. They're big, ugly cucumbers, but they need to get bigger. But the Indian snake we do have. If you haven't walked out in the garden yet, you have to go out and see our zucchini rampicante, which this is our first year growing it, and it's so much fun. And that's what we're going to have coming around right now. It's being served cold, but you can also eat it hot, but we roasted it. So this is the one that's growing on the trellis that goes like this, and you can walk underneath it, and the big, giant squashes are hanging down from it. You can either eat it as a summer squash when it's young, which is how we're serving it to you, or you can leave it on the vine and let it get fully sized, and then it becomes a winter squash, and you can store it and eat it all winter long. And we are loving these guys because, number one, they're just fun, but also they're tons of flesh, very little seed, even in the winter squash side. So it's like all zucchini. Like when you think of like your butternut squashes and the whole neck of the butternut is solid, but then you get down to the bottom and you have the seed chamber. This is very similar to that. You have this long neck that's all solid, and the seeds are just down at the bottom. And I think the texture of them when they're eaten fresh like this is similar to a winter squash, but you eat the skin and everything, unlike a winter squash. And the way we prepared that was just with some Mediterranean olive oil and salt and some green goddess sprinkle dressing from Trader Joe's, which we use on a lot of things. So it's just a very simple, and then roasting it at 400 degrees in the oven for like 40 minutes. One that I don't have out here, but if you guys are fans of okra, and if you did taste our okra, the bindi masala in here, that is like my favorite okra dish, other than fried, which isn't necessarily good for you. We tested an okra this year, and you can go in the garden and look at it. It's called Louisiana Long Pod. I have a pod out there that we're saving seed from, but it's not ready yet. The pod is about this long. When we pick them to eat them, the pods are about that long. So it's like instead of having to constantly pick these little tiny ones to keep them, like they're still good when they get about that long. And what's really cool is that you can eat them raw. And I am now addicted to raw okra. It is so good. And so when we're like out there working in the garden, I'll cut one off and eat it, and it's fantastic. Yes, it's slimy, but if the slime doesn't put you off, like it's so good raw. So we will have seed for the Louisiana long pod later. It's the only okra we're growing. It does very easily cross-pollinate with other okras, so we can't grow anything else at the same time with that one, but no, I can't hardly move that. The air just drives me.
Stop it.
Sorry. Okay. And then something that we don't have for tasting, but they're out there, is we tested a broad bean that you eat it like a green bean, but it's flat instead of round. And it's called Bloudhill, and it's purple. I was really excited about finding a purple broad bean, and the first time I cooked it, it turns green. So it's a great tasting. In fact, all of us have agreed we like eating it raw. And we do like it steamed too, just like you would steam or cook a green bean, but they're also really sweet raw. And so we'll be saving seed for those that will be available in the fall too. It's a climbing bean, so it does take up a lot of space, but it's really tasty, and it produces really, really, really heavily, and it's a pretty vine. Any questions about all the stuff I just said? Yes.
No. Oh no. No questions until we get a microphone.
Sorry, microphone.
Okay, where's your microphone?
Where's my microphone person? Oh, there she is. Ellie.
You hiding?
So, question right here. Can you take that over to her? We just need, because we're doing YouTube videos, we need your voices on it, or else people can't hear it, and I can never remember to repeat it.
Oh. When do you put your tomato plants in the ground?
We start late March if it looks like the frosts are over. Back when we used to grow them in tomato cages, we would wrap them in frost fabric, and we sell the frost fabric at our plant sales. But now that we grow them on field twine, it's really hard for us to cover them in frost fabric, so we're putting them in a little bit later. So once we've reached April 1st, we're usually really safe putting them in, but mid-March to 1st of April. And you can put them in the ground all the way up to like the 1st of June and still get, because we have such a long growing season. We personally wrap our plant sales up in May, but you can, like if you go, heaven forbid, should you go to Home Depot and buy a tomato plant, you can stick it in the ground in June and still get a harvest out of it. Oh, right here, sweetie.
On those purple beans you were talking about, do you eat just the bean or can you eat the pod?
You can eat the pod. We haven't got them mature enough to see how well they do as a dried bean. They're supposed to be dual, but we are. We know what the size of them is when they're too tough, when the pod is too tough, and so we're trying to pick the ones that we're eating fresh before they get to that size. But you may have to string them when they start getting in that close size. But if you pick them small, it's the whole pod, and even up to medium, we're still eating the whole pod. But we're starting to learn, like, oh, that one's so big, we're going to have to string it. And if it's past that point, the purple kind of gets dull, like the color gets dull when it's past the point of eating the pod. And then we're going to attempt to do dried beans with the other ones. Good question.
It's two questions. What do you do with the, I got a lot of aphids on my tomatoes.
Yeah.
And then also, what's the best soil for your tomatoes?
Are you in containers? Yes. Okay. I wish I could answer that question. I will tell it. Well, here's my answer. The best tomatoes in containers are grown in soil that marijuana grows in. Not that I know that personally, because I don't. But I know that from talking to, because a lot of the stuff that's being sold like in your Home Depot stores or Costco or whatever, like I hear complaints about it all the time. And I know that there's one called Fox Farms that is really expensive, but the marijuana growers really like it. And any tomato grower that's growing in it says that they have great results. But it tends to be because they have the same growing needs. It seems to be that, like, go to a hydroponic store and say, what's the best soil for my tomatoes? And that's probably, they're going to have multiple different kinds. I just know that, like, the Miracle Grow stuff usually is awful. There's one I think called Kellogg's or something like that is like really, really bad. In that same vein, I will tell you, and we've heard that from multiple people, we've had to tell them, this is why your plants are failing. Do not go to like the places that sell sand and rock and buy topsoil with compost mixed into it. The compost is city compost. It's the stuff you're putting in your green waste cans. It is awful. It will kill pretty much anything. And they mix that into the topsoil. You are better off buying just topsoil and then getting compost in bags and mixing it yourself. That's a good quality compost. Again, if you want to know what good quality compost, go to your hydroponic store and ask them what the marijuana growers are using, or make it yourself, which is what we do. And we've done a lot of talks on making compost, and we can answer questions about them, but I know our YouTube channels have lots of information on there about composting. Right here. Sorry.
Thomas Chapman, I think that's the name that's with Fox Farms for that.
Yes. Is that who makes it?
I don't know if he makes it, but he gave us a talk before, and he's all for it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's a really high quality. It's just you're going to have sticker shock when, especially if you've got big containers. Yeah, there's a reason it's good. It is not easy to make. So yeah, it's a really high quality one. Right here.
What kind of zucchini did we just sample?
It's zucchini rampicante. And yeah, we will have seed for it. We just have to, the zucchinis have to get old enough for us to get the seed out of them, and they're not there yet. Yes?
I've never used a microphone before.
Sorry, hold it closer to your mouth.
I have just a small,
There you go. And talk a little louder.
small garden, but I always have a big problem with white flies.
Yes. So organically, so white flies are hard to kill because they're on the back of the leaf, just like with aphids. And I know someone had asked about aphids, and I didn't get a chance to answer that. And like I said, we're letting the aphids have the stuff. We are using an insecticidal soap, but it really just kind of keeps them at bay through the biggest part of the season. Yellow sticky traps are your best bet for white flies. And you can either buy the sticky traps on the cardboard and hang them up everywhere, or you can get yellow Solo cups and put Vaseline on them and hang those, and it's just the yellow attracts the white flies, and then they stick to the cup and they can't get off. There are chemicals out there to kill them. We won't use them, and especially because you're eating the food. But we just get to a point. White flies personally aren't a problem for us. Aphids are a huge problem for us. But I know lots of people that have white flies, and the sticky traps are the best way to keep. You're only going to keep their numbers down. You're not going to get rid of them. Yeah. So yeah, that's the best way to keep them under control. Way back there, sweetie.
Is pyrethrum safe?
Boy, that's a hot button topic. So it comes from mums. So it is natural. Some very staunch organic gardeners will not use it. But of the chemicals that are out there, it's probably one of the safest. And I believe it is still on the organics list for farmers. So they can still have their organic label.
Premrethrin, right?
Premrethrin.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
On their label, if they're using it, yeah. Yeah. So it's effective, but yeah, some people poo-poo it. Oh, sorry. Hold on just a second. Thanks, Ellie.
So you mentioned how I'm still kind of learning about this, but I've been introduced to neem oil, to
Yes.
Put it on the plants and be that insect shield, right?
Right.
Do you have to consider that if you're dealing with like pollinating or
Yes.
self-pollinating plants?
Yes. So the first thing about neem oil is that in the heat of the summer, it'll kill the plants. Because anytime you put an oil on a plant in the summertime and add heat to it, you're going to fry the plant. So neem oil is very effective because it suffocates the insects. But it can also make your pollen sticky. And that if you have, like, let's say you're doing squash, which, would be summertime, and you wouldn't necessarily want to put it on in the summertime. But if you sprayed it on a squash plant, the pollen would stick when the bee goes in and starts getting in the pollen. It won't transfer over to the next one. Also, they're showing that neem oil affects the pollinators, that it's killing pollinators. So you're going to start seeing a lot of pushback from using neem oil because obviously we need our pollinators, and they're all being attacked by all the chemicals that are being used. So trying to find different ways to use stuff. It's still, again, it's one of the safer things if you're using it in cool season. So does that, sorry, I couldn't hear.
Go give him the mic, sweetie. We'll give it to him.
There is a neem product that's more systemic, and I think it's still in testing where they're trying to get it where you water it into the roots and then it goes up into the plant. Trying to find a way that the pollinators aren't directly affected by it, but I don't think it's readily available. I think in the ag industry they're still kind of playing with that. So there's a lot of oils out there, and several of them they won't sell them in California that are in the natural list. And there were a couple of them before they took them off the California list. We could still get them, but we can't get them in the state anymore. So, yeah, neem oil is going to be your best bet until something else comes out. At least I don't know of anything else yet. Yeah. Okay, we got it. Okay. So, just the last thing that I was going to mention, when we've got one other question that I'm going to answer in just a second, is, I had you guys experiment with all the cucumbers and the squash and all that. Gardening is an experiment, and we get to talk to a lot of gardeners at the plant sales, and I hear all the time people are like, I'm so discouraged, I just want to give up. And it's like, that's gardening. We are all discouraged and want to give up at some point because we're trying to figure out what works for us. And that's one of the things that we love about having all the different heirlooms and testing them, is that we find that something that does really well for somebody in another part of the country will not grow here. And things that people in other parts of the country say that they cannot grow, we're like, it does awesome for us. And so it's testing and finding those things that work best in your microclimate, with your soil, and it's all an experiment. And we are constantly crossing stuff off and saying, we're not going to grow that anymore because we just can't get it to do well for us. And so I was going to tell you of the new stuff that we tested this year that I have not spoken about, the tomatoes that you just got to taste, the ones that we tested this year and are keeping, and the ones that we tested this year and are not keeping. So the first one is eye candy. It was awesome, produced a lot, and it's in the dwarf project. So it's not mini, it's not a micro tomato, it's a dwarf tomato, so it gets about that tall. And so it's great for containers because it doesn't take up a lot of space, and we really like how well it has produced all through the season. It actually put on the first tomatoes of the season, and it still is putting tomatoes on, so it's doing really well. That's eye candy. Second one is Marina's Praise. I didn't really think it was that great, unless I get a whole bunch of feedback cards where like, I loved it, it was my favorite one that I tasted this year. It's too similar to stuff that we grow. We had blossom end rot problems, which is a calcium uptake thing. it was too fussy, and I was like, it wasn't special enough to try. And if something is special enough, I try it 2 or 3 times to see if I can fix and make it grow well for us. And if it doesn't, it gets kicked to the curb. So more than likely, Marina's praise is on the way to the curb. One that we've tried 2 years in a row, and it was supposed to be in the tasting today, and it's not because it's 2 years in a row did not do well, is Orange Jazz. So we're crossing that off the list. One that we tested this year and did not like is Purple Rain. It was on the Dwarf Project, and it just didn't do well for us. One of the star ones has the word star in it. Rebel Starfighter Prime. I guess if you're a Star Wars fan, that means something, but I'm not. So I'm like, all I know is I get hand cramps writing the name a million times when I'm growing the plants out. But it is worth hand cramps. This tomato has produced wonderful, and it has a fantastic flavor. If you didn't taste it, go back through there and taste it. Rebel Starfighter Prime.
The longest one.
The longest one, yes. And it's very unusual. It looks unusual. It tastes unusual. Well, not unusual, but it's not like common. It has a very rich flavor to it. It produces very heavily. The color and the shape are different than anything else we grow. So it's when we find ones like that, we're like, yes, like it's something completely different than anything we've grown. The next one is Showstopper. It's in the Dwarf Project. It got a little bit bigger. It was more like about this tall, but still not bad. Heavy producer. It's one of the most beautiful tomatoes I've seen in years. It's dark red with purple on top. And really great flavor, heavy producer. A lot of the times when they have anthocyanin, which is the blue that makes them look blue or purple on top, that is a antioxidant that's really good for us. It also lets the tomatoes not rot as fast, either on the vine or on your counter. So if they've got them in them, they tend to last longer. Shelf life is longer with them. The downside to them is a lot of the ones that are coming out where they're trying to get them super, super dark, they don't have a lot of flavor to them. And so, they're still better than anything you buy in the grocery store. But the thing I really like about Showstopper is it's got a lot of antho in it, and it's staying, like it's got a great flavor, and it's got all of the great properties from that. So Showstopper will definitely be staying. One that's not in the tasting and will not be on the list next year is Sartre Rolloy. I love the beauty of this tomato, and so many people are like, it does great for me. And I'm like, I've tried 3 years in a row. I cannot get this thing to produce, so we're crossing it off. It's not going to be on this list. It was on the growing lists for the last 3 years. That's the list that comes out in February. So if you were one of those people that told me you love this tomato and it did really great for you, you're going to have to get it from someone else because we're done. 3 years and you're out of here. So it's gone. And then also, if you are into peppers that will make your brain explode, we struggled. We never had problems growing habaneros until we moved on this property. We could not get them to grow here. For 4 years we tried. We could not get them to grow. And that was like the common orange habanero. We started 3 years ago. We started experimenting with different habaneros that are not the typical habanero that you think of, and we've now found 4 of them that do really good in our soil, and so we'll be keeping them. And when you get your list in February, they're listed under habanero with the name at the end. So it's like habanero goronong, habanero, whatever that variety is. And we've got red and yellow and orange. I think that's it, red, yellow, and orange varieties. And some of them are like 3 times the size of a regular habanero, and they all produce really well. So you can go out there and see them and see how well they're producing, because we haven't picked any of them yet. Habaneros are really long season, so we don't start picking them until the end of the season when they get color, so that we can make the hot sauce in there and have it be a pretty color.
Do you grow an Espelette?
One more time.
Do you grow Espelette?
No, I've never tried it.
We're trying it this year.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, we just want to know if you grow Espelette peppers.
And I've seen the name, but I've never tested it.
Yeah, they're Basque pepper, and they use them primarily. They dry them and grind them and use them as a spice.
So they're hot.
No, they're not.
Oh.
They're very mild. They actually, in the Basque community, it's used a lot of times in place of black pepper.
Okay.
They're very good.
Awesome. We are also experimenting all the time with sweet peppers that have no heat in them at all, that are not bell peppers. Because if you try to grow bells, they don't like our valley heat. We keep shade screen on them. They still really struggle. We usually will get a good flush of them in the early season. Then they nearly die towards the end of the season. Then it starts to cool down and they come back. And we'll get little peppers off them. But bells struggle in the valley. So we're always looking for sweet peppers that have a thick wall like a bell pepper, but they're not shaped like a bell pepper. And the ones that we have found that do the best and they don't care about the heat is Lesya. It's Lesya. We have seeds for them. We now have tested this year orange Lesya. So regular Lesya is red. Orange Lesya is obviously orange. And they produce really well in the heat. And then we tested one this year that is kind of wrinkly, but really high sugar, and it's called Melrose. And we really like that as a sweet pepper. You'd think of it like eating it like a sweet banana pepper, where you're putting it in salads and stuff, but it's got more of a wrinkly skin to it. And then obviously if you've ever grown Jimmy Nardello, really high sugar content in Jimmy Nardello, which is a very old variety. Looks like it's super spicy because it's long and skinny and red, but there's no heat in it at all. So it's a really good pepper for sweet. And I think that's about what we've got, unless, oh, wait, no, sorry. I have the question, sorry. Okay, I had one question that got written down. So root knot nematodes. We've talked in the past before about how to treat them. So root knot nematodes affect tomatoes. And your tomatoes will grow to a certain point. They'll look like they're really great, and then all of a sudden they die. And the only way you can know that it's root knot nematodes is you pull the plant up and all the roots look like they've got warts on them. And root knot nematodes are incredibly difficult to kill. So, and especially organically to kill. So once you've got them, it's hard to get rid of them. Solarizing is organically is probably one of the #1 ways that people have done in the past to kill them once you have them. They tend to like sandy soil. So if you're in clay, you probably don't have a problem with them. But every year when you're pulling your tomatoes up, you should look at the roots. And if the roots are starting to get knotted, then you know you've got them and you've got a problem. The best way to not get them is to rotate out of your tomato beds for 3 years. So if you planted them this year, then in 2028 or 2029, you could put them back in there. But if you're planting tomatoes in the same spot year after year after year, you're going to eventually get root knot nematodes if you've got sandy soil. So what most of the people around here, and we were doing this too, so the farmers, if you look at almond orchards or almond orchards that have been pulled out, you will see they're growing mustard, and it gets like this tall. They're growing it so that they can chop it down, till it into the soil, and it kills root knot nematodes. So for gardening, it's called Kodiak mustard. It's a wild mustard, and it you chop it up, and the chemicals that are in that mustard kill the nematodes. The problem is, as a gardener, you have to grow it till it flowers, pull it out of the ground, run it through a chipper shredder, put it back down in the bed, and then till it in, and you have to do it within 30 minutes of chopping it up. Yeah. So it's a little precarious to go that route. Farmers, it's easy. They go in there with a big machinery, chop it up, turn it in, and it's done. So what the new thing is that we're experimenting with, this is chopped up lobster and crab shells. And there is a component in these shells called chitin that kills and repels root knot nematodes. Really easy to use. We put 2 tablespoons in every planting hole and we turn it in. And it also provides calcium. Now the calcium will take time to break down. So if you've got blossom end rot problems, this isn't going to help the first year because calcium in this form takes a really long time to break down. So if you have blossom end rot problems and it's because you don't have calcium in your soil, it's better to use liquid calcium. But this does add calcium to your soil. But the main reason that it's being used is to kill root knot nematodes. And it's super cheap. And like I bought this bag thinking I would go through it really fast, but it's 2 tablespoons per planting hole. And it doesn't go bad. I would keep it away from your dog because it does smell like lobsters and crabs. So they probably would like to eat the whole bag. But you just do 2 tablespoons in, turn it in, and then plant your plants. And it won't hurt anything if you didn't need it, but it definitely is a good safeguard. And so far, this was not something I knew. I knew all about root knot nematodes for tomatoes, didn't know that almond trees are affected as badly as they are by them. So when we were moving onto this property with the old almond orchard, I was like, yes, no tomatoes have been here forever. I won't have root knot nematodes. And then I found out, yeah, they actually attack the almond trees. So we started with soil that was really dead and full of root knot nematodes. And our tomatoes, the first 4 years were awful. We now have had 2 years that we have pulled the tomatoes up and there's no sign of root knot nematodes on any of the plants at all. So I can't say scientifically that this is the reason. I just know that we've always had a problem with them even at our old property, and this is working. So do with it what you will. And that's all I got. Thank you guys. Thank you.